Welcome back, guys. So we're looking today at the Taiwan Swirl, and we've called this a Taiwan Swirl because this is a pink and white Valentine style soap. So what we've got here is our base oils mixed with some lye, and I've actually put a little bit of titanium dioxide into the oils because I want the whole thing to have this kind of slightly pastel note to it. So we're going in with some fragrance oil there. That is a mixture of lavender essential oil and sweet orange essential oil, so you get a very subtle fragrance from that one, and it's slightly less cloying than some of the other fragrances that are out there, I think. So into our mold here, we're basically going to do 3 sections, which is 2 white on the outside and a pink on the inside. Now you can use a divider for this technique. However, if you're careful and you do a nice slow pour and use a nice slow moving batter, you can get away with doing this with this technique, which means you don't have 2 more pieces of equipment to wash up, and you're actually not wasting any batter left on the side of the dividers. So it's another way of doing that. In this little jug here, I've got some neon pink mica, which has been dispersed in a little bit of oil and has been left to kind of sit for a couple of hours just to allow that mica to dissolve. And I've poured a little bit of batter into there to start the process and the colour going. And what I'm then going to do is pour off a little bit of my main batter, and you're looking at about maybe 1/5 of what you're using for the entirety of the soap bar is going to be the pink, and the rest of it's just going to stay as the white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wee bit of this white batter and I'm going to pour it into another jug in a second, and we're then going to add the rest of that pink soap into it. Again, just making sure everything has been combined, is at an emulsion, and is going to be slow enough for me to work with to get this technique done. So we're going to pour the rest of this pink into here, and you can see how nicely that's just really been put into the oil, and it now looks nicely. You're not going to get any speckles, you're not going to get any of that nastiness happening. We'll get a nice smooth soap with this. So there we go. We'll scrape out as much of that as we can, and we're just going to get this stirred in, and it should combine really nicely. So there you can see we've got a nice bright pink. Because we've used the neon, it's going to be a nice bright colour, but it's the 2 colours we're using. So I clearly didn't have quite enough in there. It might have been a quarter, might be 1/4 to 3/4. However you want to do it. The more pink you have in the middle, the kind of pinker the bar will be. The less pink you have in the middle, the whiter the bar will be. It's entirely up to you how you do this. So the way we're going to start this pour is by pouring some white into the bottom of the mould initially. And then what we'll do is we'll basically use the pink in the middle, which is going to then essentially push itself outwards. And then we use the white to push it back into the middle by doing a wall pour. So it's quite a simple way of doing a pour, but it's a nice way of getting this feeling and technique done without using dividers. So pop a little bit of the white into the bottom. And literally that's probably, I don't know, 1 centimetre's depth, something along those lines. Then what we're going to do is, using the pink, we're going to pour slowly and carefully into the middle. Now, essentially what that's doing is creating like a drop swirl in the bottom. So if you wanted like a really pristine block of colour in the middle, you would use dividers. This way, you can see how that's kind of being pushed out. And then what we're going to do is, by pouring down the wall of the side, and I cocked it up a little bit there, but we're going to push that back in a second. We're going to push that pink back. So here's a nice close-up of that wall pour, nice and slowly. And all I'm doing is moving backwards and forwards. And actually on this view, you can see where the pink is sitting in the middle. So we're going to move it back around a bit, and this is going to swirl it. But again, we're going for a swirl here. Having a nice light batter at this stage, what it means is you're actually going to get some nice swirls. And you can see how pouring on this side of the wall has just pushed that pink back into the middle. And that's literally all we're going to do, is we're going to use our batter to control where that's going. Because it's slightly higher in the mould now, if I do this nice and gently, nice and slowly, I'm laying this onto the surface of the soap. It's just very carefully and very gently laying that pink onto the surface of the soap, which is going to mean we get that nice pink in the middle. But it also means as we do the swirl on this one, we're going to get some differences in the bars as they come out. So it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be a standard kind of Taiwan Swirl. So I would classify this probably as a slightly modified Taiwan Swirl. But the techniques are pretty much the same, and it's a really nice way of creating a simple soap that's got some interest to it, but is not kind of like a really complicated way of doing it. So as you see, that pink's spread out nicely. And again, what we're just going to do is use our little bit of white here, and we are going to push that back into the center by doing a simple wall pour. There we go. And you'll just watch as that hits and it pushes back, that pink is going to go back into the center. It's brilliant. And it just means you've got 3 things to wash up rather than 6 or 7 or 8, however many you want to use. But again, it doesn't mean you can't use dividers for this. It just means I'm not having to wash so much up afterwards. There we go. So we're going to push that a little bit back in, and we're really starting now to get quite high into the mold. So we're not going to get quite such a massive pushback. And we will go to another view in a second just to see the side view as we put that last bit of pink in. There we go. So you can see I've got very little pink actually on that side view, and you can just about see it on the end there. And this is a brilliant view for seeing this wall pour done. So you can see literally just pouring it down the wall, nice and slowly, taking my time, going backwards and forwards. And again, if you're using a longer mold, you just have a longer pour to go. And I sometimes just decant large amounts of batter off into a separate jug. And what that allows me then to do is be able to pour it slowly without like a massive glut coming out at the beginning. So if you're over halfway up your jug, the likelihood is you're going to get a lot of soap come out initially. So take away some of the volume and you'll get a better pour. Okay, it's one more thing to wash up, but again, it's easier to wash a jug up than some dividers. So just finishing off the last little bit of pink here, and we are right at the top of the mould here. So I've got a little bit of soap left over, which I popped into a separate mould just to cure as a little soap for me. And there we have it. So there's going to be variations as you move up the bar, but that's pretty much it done. So here we go. I've got a dowel, and I quite like something a bit thicker because then you get a better swirl from it, but you can use any size you want, thick or thin, it doesn't matter. And we're literally going to go across the mould, drop down a wee bit and come back across the mould. And we're just going to follow that pattern, as you see on the screen there, backwards and forwards, and it's creating this lovely pattern of soap, putting the pink through into the white and the white through into the pink, and just keep going. As we go down, you can see that's just pulling all of that soap. And because I've got a nice fluid batter, it's pulling the soap further. We're getting a lot more kind of feather to the swirl. We're getting a lot more nice kind of swirly ends, and they've got this real featheriness to them. When you get to the end here and you've done your last pull, I then go around the outside of the mould, and what that does is it's kind of pulling the ends with it. So you get this kind of this subtle curve to all of the lines. The more you go round, the more it's done. I've gone round twice, and I'm literally just going to pull back out at this point. And that is a Taiwan swirl. Now, if you see an original Taiwan swirl, they do lots of ups and downs, and there's lots of other things you can do. But I kind of like this slightly modified, simplified Taiwan swirl. So I kind of enjoy this kind of quite floaty, airy style to it. So my base is going to be a lot more white when it comes to it, and the pink will mottle down a wee bit, and it'll just give me a kind of really nice pink and white Valentine-esque soap without all the hearts and bits and pieces like that. So this is nice to go if you don't have like that whole lovey-dovey, I need to give you a heart at Valentine's. This is a nice way of presenting a slightly less effeminate, feminine soap with all the hearts in it, and yet is suitable for pretty much anyone in your life, really. The fragrance is beautiful and all of those things. So I'm just going to spray the top here with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. This is going to do 2 things. It should stop soda ash. Because I've used some titanium dioxide, I don't really want this one to go through a high gel phase because that will potentially lead to glycerin rivers. So adding a bit of the alcohol on top of there is great. The other thing it does, and you'll see it hopefully in the next bar, it's actually textured the top ever so slightly with these little droplets. And as the alcohol evaporates, you're left with this kind of ever so slightly kind of like ribboned top. And I quite like that as a top that's just simple, easy, and hasn't had a lot of work done to it. So sometimes in soaping, less is most definitely more. And we're back for the cut. Now, as you can see here, we're going to cut this in a slightly different way. So I've got my single bar cutter and my alignment tool here. And what we're going to do is just, I'll show you how to cut this in a different way. But first things first, what I'm just going to do is show you the top of the bar. So if you can see there, we've got this kind of ribboned look to it, which I rather like for a top of a bar. Although on this one, we're going to ignore the top completely. So, but there we go. So I'm going to measure this one out just so I can cut the bar in half right down the middle from top to bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn it onto its side and cut through the bar to reveal that pattern throughout the bar. So we'll just pop this in and get this one cut in half. And so now what you'll see me do is actually pop this in so you can see kind of the striations through. So if you can see the pattern, you're cutting in the wrong direction. You want to see these straight lines happening. And we're just going to cut straight through the bar at this angle. We're going to give it a little bit more depth. And we'll cut through at this angle. And you will see the magic appear. And there we go. There is your Taiwan swirl, and that will be throughout the bar in each cut that you make. And what's quite nice with it is that you'll get matching patterns, so they'll kind of give you these opposites, which is a really nice effect you get from doing this kind of swirl. And we'll pop some music on now, and you can enjoy the rest of this cut. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and why not subscribe to my channel? If you do, make sure to click the bell icon and you'll get notified when a new video is uploaded. Thanks a lot, soapsters, and we'll see you next time.